Every once in a while, I look back at Dragon Age Origins and Star Wars Knights of the Republic, and I remember being really immersed in its lore and world building. I hadn't really seen a storytelling of this caliber prior to playing these games. But then on a second look, I asked myself, were they really that great as a whole, or did something fool me at that time? Upon a careful review and re-accessing some of their contents, I get a reminder of the prevalence of a certain factor in play when I was running through these games. And what is that exactly, you might wonder? Mods. As you all may probably already know by now, mods can greatly improve a game, especially if it has many outdated elements in ways that would not have been possible in its original state. Think of anything, and I bet you could probably find whatever that is out there in the form of a mod that you can install and drastically change the gameplay experience. We're talking graphics, skill changes or new skills, hacks abilities, AI improvements, and possibly even entirely new contents or dialogues. Simply put, mods just make everything better. You get the idea. But then there's a certain lens that you need to take into account when you're looking at moddings. I now realize after my personal experience that you really should only utilize these add-ons either during the post-game if the game does allow you to roam around after you finish the game, or when you're doing a replay or new game plus. Now you might be asking, why is that? What's wrong with installing mods in your first playthrough? What happens if you do? Well, let's find out. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, mods make everything better. So naturally, if you play something with these add-ons, especially if it's your first time trying it out, you will more than likely have far more positive yet skewed impression of the game, which would be equivalent to having a biased take, since you're playing the modified version of the core original product, and all those mods are in fact not part of the game itself since they're user created. And the worst part is, it even makes playing the game without mods almost impossible, especially if the game is pretty old, since you literally just experience a better version of it in every way possible. It also makes being objective very difficult because, as you may know, your first initial opinions of something will almost always cloud over your following thoughts despite how hard you try to differentiate the two. I experienced this firsthand when I played Dragon Age Origins. I don't think I need to say much about how great the storytelling and the world building of Origin was, but there's no denying the combat gameplay in the game was absolutely abysmal to say the least, and clunky. I played the original version for about, I say, 25% of the game before I couldn't tolerate the snail pace and awkward gameplay, and just went ahead to install a few combat tweaking mods, and well, that led me to ending up getting multiple mods ranging from graphics to even armors that weren't even available in the game to begin with. Though the combat changes were the most influential for me, this had greatly, and I mean it significantly, impacted my experience of playing Dragon Age Origins for the entirety of the game, for the rest of it. And I really had a strong and positive impression on my first playthrough, that when it was actually time for me to break the game down and give out my review and thoughts, I had to rip my composite self into two. One, looking from the lens of a modded Dragon Age Origins, and the other from a more objective standpoint without any mods. And believe me when I say it wasn't easy at all. Like I said, this wasn't easy because your first time typically have long-lasting effects on you, and it can be easy to get biased if you fail to separate the original game and the modified versions. The combat gameplay mechanic is the single most important features of a game since, well, it's literally how the game is played. I would say you don't ever compromise the combat for anything. Nothing. No matter how good everything else is, whether that be the visuals or the story, if the combat just plays terribly, the game merit can only go so far. And it also doesn't help the replayability either. Because what's going to end up happening is that you'll find yourself immersed in its world and lore. But when it's actually time to move your character or fight, well, now suddenly the mood has gone down. I ended up installing mods that do not only speed up the attack animations, but again, also getting new skills and armors that were not obtainable in the core game. It didn't stop there though, because another thing was that I wasn't really used to having to constantly save the game in a lot of these older games, which by the way, the manual save system in Dragon Age Origin is pretty simple, and it is billions of times better than the pile of that Dragon Dogma Dark Risen had. It took me a while to remind myself to save often, especially after having defeated heaps of enemies. This resulted in grinding for certain items or clearing certain areas quite tiring and repetitive, largely due to the combat design that I also got myself an add item mod and even a last resort skip fight, which essentially what it does is it kills every hostile threats around you. I used this when I got burned out from Origins gameplay and just wanted to get past all of these fights that I already went through the first time to get to the story instead. This definitely enhanced my overall experience of Origins to the point that I could have easily been biased regarding how good the game actually was as a whole. What allowed me to be objective was the fact that I did play the original game without any add-ons for a good amount of time. I would say, like I mentioned, it was about 25% roughly. And so I was able to nudge myself a little bit about how outdated the combat system was. This led to me giving 2 ratings for Dragon Age Origins, one without the mods and the other with the mods. Although a rating for a game with mods is pretty useless, if I'll be honest, since you're using the modified version of the original and it's literally open season on possibility when it comes to mod. I gave Dragon Age Origins 8 out of 10 without any mods, but honestly I could settle for even less, looking back, at a 7 or 7.5 out of 10. If someone were to give this game 7 out of 10, I wouldn't even be mad. All those ratings are pretty much entirely due to the game masterful lore and world building, like I mentioned. I also mentioned this before, but after playing Dragon Age Origin with the mods, it's basically impossible for me to even go back to playing the game in any way without it. There was little to no chance out of replay Origins given how clunky and slow the gameplay was, so having experienced the modded variant, there's definitely just no way I could go back to the core version of the game. I don't think I can do that. It's like comparing, it's like night and day if you compare the modded version to the original core version. In addition to the mods resolving most of my issue of the game, there are mods that expand and even add new skills, specs, and classes that fit into the style and lore of Dragon Age. That certainly piqued my interest, and I actually enjoy configuring my character builds for combat, which is not something that happened when I play without the mods. You combine that with the storytelling of Origins, and it's certainly an experience worth spending hours into. But again, a lot of this is due to the mods enhancing the gameplay experience. You can't attribute any of this to the original game alone, nor give credits to it, let's be honest here. And this is why it's best to first play the game the way it was originally intended to, and judge it on its own merit. Then later on, once you complete it or you end up ditching the game due to how terrible it is or that you didn't like certain aspect of the game, you're then more than welcome to install any mods, just as long as you already made an impression of the core version. At least this way you're less likely to be biased on the quality and longevity of the product, versus fanboying over it when you added gazillions of mods that have absolutely nothing to do with the actual game itself. I wished I understood this before prior to going the route that I did with Dragon Age Origins, but thankfully I'm able to enjoy the game while also recognizing its major shortcoming when it came to the combat gameplay and some of its outdated clunky mechanics. And actually, it wasn't just Dragon Age Origins, if I'm being honest. I sort of also did the same thing with Star Wars Knights of the Republic 1, especially with KOTOR being 6 years older than even Origins. I am on the same boat mostly with KOTOR 1 as I am with Origins, both having great storytelling but very outdated and clunky gameplay. This is why my stance on modding have somewhat shifted ever since I used mods on those titles. I kept talking about how great those games were, but really, the mods drastically helped me tolerate the awkward gameplay, and I'm not even sure if I would have been patient to even persist or complete the game 100%, given the way they play, had I not installed any mods. I love the lore, but I also understand the major problems that arise everywhere else outside of that. Realizing the mistakes I made, I insisted on not getting any kinds of mod, whether it be something as small as sound effects for the foreseeable future. I could have gotten performance fix or sound change for RoboCop Rogue City, but I went ahead and played the game the way it was released first before even giving a thought about any changes. And regarding RoboCop, there were only like 1 to 2 performance issues that I came across. They didn't interfere with my overall experience in any way. And I gotta say, RoboCop Rogue City, it needs a sequel because that was a damn good entry for a potential RoboCop franchise which should be greenlit. It's also why I didn't use the plethora of mods that are available for dragonageorigin, despite knowing now that the game could have really used some of them with the way it was put out. Anyway, let me know what you think. Do you agree with this assessment? And let me know if you had a personal experience of conflating a modded game, and let me know what game that is with the original. As always, consider subscribing and leaving a like as well, and I will catch you later.